The moment Catherine Zimmerman saw Nathaniel Frost stride through the doors of her father's general store in Superior, Arizona, she knew her carefully constructed world was about to shatter into 1,000 irreparable pieces. It was late September in 1883, and the desert heat still clung to the wooden buildings like a stubborn memory. Catherine had been arranging bolts of fabric on the shelves when the door swung open with enough force to make the bell overhead clang violently. Nathaniel Frost was not a large man, but he carried himself with the kind of authority that made people step aside without thinking. His boots struck the floorboards with purpose, and his pale eyes swept the interior of the store until they landed on her. "Miss Zimmerman," he said, removing his hat. His voice was smooth, cultured, entirely out of place in this mining town tucked into the Pinal Mountains. "I have come to speak with your father." Catherine's hands tightened on the calico she held. "He is not here, Mr. Frost. He has gone to Phoenix on business." "Then perhaps you and I might speak privately." He took a step closer, and Catherine instinctively moved back until her spine pressed against the shelf. "I have been patient, Miss Zimmerman, exceedingly patient, but my patience has its limits." "I have given you my answer," Catherine said, forcing her voice to remain steady. "I will not marry you, Mr. Frost. I do not love you, and I do not wish to be your wife." Nathaniel's expression did not change, but something cold flickered in his eyes. "Love is a luxury, Miss Zimmerman. What I offer you is security, position, and a future far beyond what you will find in this dusty little store. Your father's debts are considerable. I could resolve them with a signature." "My father's debts are his own concern," Catherine said, though her heart sank. She knew exactly how deep those debts ran, how many nights her father sat at the kitchen table with his head in his hands, surrounded by ledgers that refused to balance. "Are they?" Nathaniel stepped closer still. "When the bank forecloses, where will you go? What will you do?" "A woman alone in the territories has few options, and none of them pleasant. I would rather take my chances than bind myself to a man I do not love. You will learn to love me." His hand shot out and caught her wrist before she could dodge. His grip was not painful, but it was firm, unyielding. "I have decided that you will be my wife, Catherine. Whether you agree today or tomorrow or next month makes no difference. The outcome will be the same." Catherine tried to pull away, but his fingers tightened. "Let me go when you give me a proper answer." "I have given you an answer." "The answer is no. It will always be no." For a moment, something dangerous flashed across Nathaniel's face, but then he released her and stepped back. "We shall see," he said quietly. "We shall see what answer you give when your father loses everything he has worked for. When your mother's grave marker is the only thing left of your family legacy. Think on that, Miss Zimmerman. I will return in 3 days for your answer, the correct answer." He turned and left without another word, and Catherine stood frozen in place, her wrist aching where his fingers had been. Through the window, she watched him mount a magnificent black gelding and ride toward the grand house he had built on the hill overlooking Superior. Nathaniel Frost had come to Arizona Territory 2 years ago with money from back east, buying up mining claims and water rights, slowly tightening his grip on the town until nearly everyone owed him something. Catherine had caught his attention at a church social, and from that moment he had pursued her with the same cold determination he applied to his business dealings. He sent gifts she refused to accept. He appeared wherever she went. He spoke to her father about marriage as though her consent was a mere formality. And when she rejected him, again and again, his eyes grew colder and his promises darker. That evening, Catherine sat at the table in the small house behind the store, picking at the supper she had prepared. Her father would not return from Phoenix for another week. She was alone, and for the first time in her 22 years, she felt truly afraid. She knew Nathaniel Frost was not a man who accepted refusal. She knew he would find a way to force her hand, whether through her father's debts or through some other means. Superior was his town now. The sheriff answered to him. The judge dined at his table. If Nathaniel decided he would have her, there would be no one to stop him, unless she ran. The thought came to her as she washed the dishes, her hands moving mechanically through the warm water. She could leave. She could pack what little she owned and slip away before Nathaniel returned for his answer. She had a cousin in Tucson, or perhaps she could reach California. Anything was better than being trapped in a marriage with a man who saw her as another possession to acquire. Catherine did not sleep that night. She lay in her narrow bed, staring at the ceiling, weighing her options. By dawn, her decision was made. She rose before the sun, moving quietly through the house. She changed into her riding skirt and a simple blouse, then packed a carpet bag with a few changes of clothes, her mother's Bible, and what little money she had saved from her work in the store. She wrote a letter to her father, trying to explain, knowing he would be hurt and angry but hoping he would understand. The stable behind the house held only one horse, a sturdy bay mare named Penny. Catherine saddled her quickly, her fingers fumbling with the straps in her nervousness. She had ridden since childhood, but never alone, never this far. The plan was to head south toward Tucson, staying off the main roads, traveling at night if necessary. She led Penny quietly down the alley behind the store, not mounting until she reached the edge of town. The eastern sky was just beginning to lighten, painting the mountains in shades of rose and gold. Catherine pulled herself into the saddle and urged Penny forward, her heart pounding so hard she could hear the blood rushing in her ears. Superior fell away behind her as she rode south into the desert. The morning was cool, but she knew the heat would come soon enough. She had filled 2 canteens and packed what food she could carry. If she was careful, if she was lucky, she could reach Florence by nightfall and Tucson in another 2 days. She had been riding for perhaps 3 hours when she heard the sound that froze her blood. Dogs. Catherine twisted in the saddle, looking back the way she had come. In the distance, perhaps a mile back, she could see riders. Even from this distance, she could tell they were moving fast, and the baying of hounds carried clearly across the desert air. Nathaniel had sent trackers after her. Terror gave her clarity. Catherine leaned forward and urged Penny into a gallop, heading for a rocky outcropping she could see ahead. But Penny was not a racing horse, and Catherine could hear the pursuit getting closer. The dogs were gaining. The riders were gaining. In minutes, they would overtake her. She pushed Penny harder, but the mare was already lathering, her breathing labored. They would not outrun the trackers. Catherine's mind raced, searching for options. She could hide, but the dogs would find her. She could try to lose them in the rocks, but she did not know this country well enough. Just when despair was closing in, she saw the rider. He came from the north, cutting across her path at an angle. For a heart-stopping moment, Catherine thought he was another of Nathaniel's men, but as he drew closer, she saw he wore different clothes, sat his horse differently. He was a cowboy, broad-shouldered and sun-bronzed, with a weathered hat pulled low over his eyes. "Turn east," he shouted as he drew alongside her. "Follow me." Now, Catherine did not hesitate. She pulled Penny's head around and followed the stranger as he veered sharply toward a line of mesquite and rock. Behind them, the dogs grew louder, but the cowboy seemed unconcerned. He rode with easy confidence, guiding his buckskin gelding through terrain that looked impassable. They plunged into a dry wash, the horse's hooves clattering on stone. The cowboy led her through a series of turns, then suddenly pulled up his horse and dismounted in one fluid motion. "Get down," he said urgently. "Quickly." Catherine slid from the saddle, her legs shaking. The cowboy was already moving, pulling something from his saddlebags. He worked with swift efficiency, doing something Catherine could not quite see in the shadows of the wash. Then he grabbed both horses' reins and led them up a narrow cut in the rocks that Catherine had not even noticed. "Come on," he said. "Stay in my footprints. Step exactly where I step." Catherine followed him up the narrow passage, pressing herself against the rock walls. The space was barely wide enough for the horses, but they squeezed through until they emerged into a small hidden canyon, no more than 20 feet across, surrounded by high walls of red rock. The cowboy tied the horses in the shade at the far end, then returned to Catherine. "Stay here," he said quietly. "Do not make a sound, no matter what you hear." "What did you do?" Catherine whispered. "Made them a trail to follow, just not the right trail." He gave her a quick, reassuring smile, and for the first time Catherine got a good look at his face. He was perhaps 26 or 27, with deep brown eyes and a strong jaw shadowed with stubble. There was kindness in his expression, but also a sharpness, an awareness that spoke of a man who had lived through hard things and survived. "Who are you?" she asked. "Cole Mallory," he said. "And you are a woman running from something bad, unless I miss my guess." Before Catherine could respond, the sound of the dogs reached them, but the noise was moving away, heading south along the false trail Cole had laid. They could hear men's voices, the trackers calling to each other, but the sounds grew fainter and then disappeared entirely. Cole waited a full 10 minutes before he finally relaxed. "They will figure it out eventually," he said, "but by then we will be long gone." "Why did you help me?" Catherine asked. "You do not even know me." "I know enough," Cole said. "I saw those men, saw the dogs. No decent person hunts another human being like an animal unless something is very wrong." He studied her face. "You want to tell me what you are running from?" Catherine hesitated, then the words came tumbling out. She told him about Nathaniel Frost, about his pursuit, his threats, his determination to make her his wife regardless of her wishes. She told him about her father's debts and her decision to run. Cole listened without interrupting, his expression growing darker as she spoke. "Nathaniel Frost," he said when she finished. "I know that name. He has been buying up land all through this territory, pushing out small ranchers, controlling water rights. He is building himself an empire, and he does not care who he crushes to do it. You know him, not personally, but I have crossed paths with men like him before, men who think money gives them the right to take whatever they want." Cole glanced toward the entrance to the hidden canyon. "Those trackers will keep looking. This Frost seems like the kind of man who does not give up easily." "I know," Catherine said quietly. "That is why I have to keep running. I thought if I could reach Tucson, perhaps find work there, change my name." Cole was silent for a long moment, his gaze distant. Then he looked at her directly. "I have a better idea," he said. "I have a cabin about 2 days' ride from here, up in the Superstition Mountains. Remote place, hard to find if you do not know where you are looking. You could stay there until things cool down, until we figure out a more permanent solution." "Why would you do this for a stranger?" Catherine asked. "Because it is the right thing to do," Cole said simply. "And because I have a sister about your age. If she was running from a man like Frost, I would hope someone would help her." Catherine felt tears prick her eyes, the first real kindness she had experienced in so long. "I do not know how to thank you." "Do not thank me yet," Cole said with a slight smile. "We still have to get there without being caught. Those trackers are good at what they do, and Frost probably hired the best." He moved to his horse and checked the supplies in his saddlebags. "We will rest here for an hour, let the horses recover, then head northeast. We will have to move carefully, cover our tracks. Are you up for that? Yes, Catherine said. I will do whatever it takes. Good. Cole pulled out some jerky and a canteen, offering both to her. Eat something, drink. We have a hard ride ahead of us. They spent the next hour in the hidden canyon, the silence broken only by the soft sounds of the horses and the distant call of a hawk. Catherine ate, though she had no appetite, knowing she needed her strength. She watched Cole as he moved about, checking his gear, his rifle, the horse's hooves. He moved with the easy competence of someone who had spent his life in the saddle, comfortable in wild places. "How did you find this place?" Catherine asked. "I have been working cattle through this country for about 5 years now," Cole said. "You learn where the hidden spots are, where the water is, where you can take shelter if you need to. This canyon has saved me more than once during storms." "Were you working cattle nearby when you saw me?" Cole nodded. "I was moving a small herd north when I saw the dust from the riders and heard the dogs. Figured someone was in trouble." He glanced at her. "I am glad I followed my instincts." "So am I," Catherine said softly. When the hour had passed, Cole helped her mount Penny, then swung into his own saddle with easy grace. "From here on, we move carefully," he said. "We will stick to rocky ground when we can, cross water when we find it. I know some tricks to throw off trackers, but the man Frost probably hired is going to be good. We have to be better." They left the hidden canyon through a different route, climbing up and over the rocks until they reached higher ground. Cole led them northeast, away from the main trails, through country that grew increasingly rugged. They crossed dry washes and climbed over hills covered in saguaro and ocotillo. The sun climbed higher and the heat became oppressive, but Cole kept them moving at a steady pace. Several times, Cole stopped and dismounted, doing something Catherine could not quite see. Once, he carefully brushed out their tracks with a branch of sage. Another time, he led them through a stream for nearly a mile before emerging on the far bank. His knowledge of tracking and counter-tracking was impressive, and Catherine found herself deeply grateful for his help. As the afternoon wore on, they climbed higher into the mountains. The landscape changed, the saguaros giving way to juniper and pine. The air grew cooler and Catherine breathed easier. Behind them, there was no sign of pursuit, but Cole remained vigilant, constantly scanning their back trail. They stopped as the sun was setting, making camp in a small grove of trees near a spring. Cole unsaddled the horses and let them drink, then led them to a patch of grass. "No fire tonight," he said. "We are probably safe, but I do not want to take chances." Catherine nodded, too tired to care. She had been riding all day, her muscles aching from the unaccustomed exertion. Cole offered her more jerky and some hardtack, and she ate gratefully. "Tell me about yourself," Catherine said as they sat in the gathering darkness. "You said you have been working cattle in this territory. Is that what you do?" "Mostly," Cole said. "I worked for some of the bigger ranches for a while, but the past 2 years I have been running my own small operation. I have about 50 head up near my cabin. Nothing fancy, but enough to make a living. It is hard work, but I like it. Like being my own boss, making my own decisions." "And your family? You mentioned a sister." Cole's expression softened. "Sarah. She is 20 now, living in Denver with our aunt. Our parents died when I was 18, and I have been looking after her ever since. Sent her to Denver for schooling a few years back. She writes me letters, tells me about her life there. She is happy, I think." "It must be lonely for you," Catherine said. "Sometimes," Cole admitted. "But I have friends scattered around the territory, and the work keeps me busy. There is always something that needs doing on a ranch, even a small one." He glanced at her. "What about you? Your mother passed, you said." 5 years ago, Catherine said softly. "Fever, My father never really recovered from losing her. He threw himself into the store, but his heart was not in it. That is when the debts started piling up. He made poor decisions, trusted the wrong people. By the time Nathaniel Frost arrived in Superior, my father was desperate enough to listen to his offers. But not desperate enough to force you into marriage. No, Catherine said. My father loves me in his way. He would never force me. But Nathaniel is clever. He made it seem as though marriage to him was the only solution, the only way to save everything. My father began to believe it, began to pressure me, gently at first, then more insistently. That is why you ran. I could not see another option, Catherine said. If I had stayed, eventually the pressure would have been too much, or Nathaniel would have found some way to force the issue. He is not a man who accepts defeat. Cole was quiet for a moment. He will keep looking for you, he said finally. Men like that, they see losing something they want as a personal insult. He will spend whatever it takes to find you. I know, Catherine said. That is why I cannot go back, ever. Then we will make sure he does not find you, Cole said with quiet determination. My cabin is remote enough that you could stay there for quite some time, and I have friends who can help if needed. We will figure this out, Catherine. I promise you that. The way he said her name with such gentle certainty made Catherine's heart ache. This man was a stranger, yet he was risking himself to help her. She wanted to ask why again, but she knew his answer would be the same, because it was right, because he had a good heart. They slept that night under the stars, Cole insisting Catherine take his bedroll while he slept on his saddle blanket with his rifle nearby. Catherine lay awake for a long time, listening to the night sounds of the desert, the distant howl of a coyote, the rustle of the wind through the trees. For the first time in months, she felt something that might have been hope. They rose before dawn and were riding again as the first light touched the mountains. Cole continued his careful progress, leading them through increasingly difficult terrain. Several times they had to dismount and lead the horses up steep slopes or through narrow passes. But Cole never seemed uncertain, always moving with purpose, as though he carried a map in his head. By mid-morning they reached the base of the Superstition Mountains, those strange, forbidding peaks that rose like broken teeth from the desert floor. Local legends spoke of gold hidden in these mountains, of lost mines and men who went searching and never returned. Catherine had never been this far from Superior, and the landscape felt alien and dangerous. Do not worry, Cole said, noticing her expression. The Superstitions have a reputation, but they are just mountains. If you know them, they are no more dangerous than anywhere else. And you know them. Well enough, Cole said. I have spent time exploring up here, learning the trails. It is beautiful country if you can appreciate that kind of beauty. They climbed higher, the trail becoming little more than a faint track through the rocks. The vegetation changed again, becoming sparse and hardy. But Cole moved with confidence and Catherine followed, trusting him completely. It was late afternoon when they finally reached the cabin. It sat in a small valley tucked between two ridges, invisible from below, protected on three sides by steep slopes. A stream ran nearby, its water clear and cold. The cabin itself was small but well built, with a stone chimney and a covered porch. Behind it was a small corral where Cole kept his horses and a shed for supplies. Home, Cole said simply. Not much, but it is mine. Catherine slid from Penny's back, her legs trembling with exhaustion. It is perfect, she said, and meant it. Cole helped her inside while he tended to the horses. The cabin's interior was simple but clean. There was a stone fireplace, a table with two chairs, a small stove, and a bed in one corner covered with quilts. Shelves lined one wall, holding supplies and a few books. It was clearly a bachelor's dwelling, practical and unadorned, but it felt safe. Cole returned a few minutes later carrying Catherine's bag and his saddlebags. "You can have the bed," he said. "I will sleep out in the barn. There is a cot out there I use sometimes when the weather is bad." "I cannot take your bed," Catherine protested. "You can and you will," Cole said firmly. "You have been through an ordeal. You need proper rest." He moved to the stove and began building a fire. "I will make us something hot to eat, then you should sleep. Tomorrow we can figure out our next steps." Catherine was too tired to argue. She sank into one of the chairs and watched as Cole moved efficiently around the small space, preparing a simple meal of beans and bacon. He worked with the easy competence she was coming to recognize in him, wasting no motion, everything done properly and well. They ate together as the light faded outside, the silence between them comfortable rather than awkward. Catherine found herself studying Cole's face in the firelight, the strong lines of his jaw, the kindness in his eyes. He was handsome, she realized, in a rugged, unpretentious way. But more than that, he was good, genuinely, deeply good. In a territory full of hard men who took what they wanted, Cole Mallory was different. "Thank you," she said quietly, "for everything. I do not know what I would have done if you had not found me." Cole met her gaze. "I am glad I did," he said. "And you are safe here, Catherine. I give you my word on that." The way he looked at her made Catherine's breath catch. There was something in his eyes, something warm and intense that made her heart beat faster. She looked away, confused by her own reaction. She had just escaped from one man who wanted to possess her. She could not afford to let her emotions become tangled with another, no matter how kind he was. But as she lay in Cole's bed that night, wrapped in his quilts that smelled of sage and wood smoke, Catherine could not stop thinking about him, about the way he had appeared when she needed help most, about his quiet strength and his gentle manner, about the way he made her feel safe for the first time in so very long. Outside, in the barn, Cole lay awake on his cot, staring at the darkness. He had not been entirely honest with Catherine. He had not just happened upon her by chance. He had been in Superior the day before, selling some horses, and he had seen Nathaniel Frost. Had watched the man stalk through the town as though he owned it, which in many ways he did. Cole had heard the whispers about Frost's pursuit of the storekeeper's daughter, about his determination to marry her. When Cole had seen the riders and heard the dogs this morning, he had known immediately what was happening, and something in him had refused to let it stand. He had pushed his horse hard to intercept the fleeing woman, driven by an instinct he did not fully understand. Now she was here in his cabin, and Cole knew his life had just become significantly more complicated. Nathaniel Frost would not give up. He would keep searching, and eventually, someone would remember seeing Cole in Superior. Someone would make the connection. When that happened, Frost would turn his attention to Cole Mallory, and that would be dangerous for both of them. But as Cole thought of Catherine's frightened eyes, her quiet courage, the way she had trusted him despite having no reason to, he found he did not regret his choice. He would protect her. Whatever it took, however long it lasted, he would keep her safe from Nathaniel Frost. Even if it cost him everything. The next morning dawned clear and cool. Catherine woke to the smell of coffee and found Cole already up, preparing breakfast. He smiled when she emerged from the cabin, and Catherine felt her heart do a strange little flutter. "Sleep well?" he asked. "Better than I have in months," Catherine admitted. She accepted the cup of coffee he offered and wrapped her hands around its warmth. "What happens now?" Cole leaned against the porch railing, his own cup in hand. "I have been thinking about that," he said. "You cannot stay hidden forever. Eventually, you will need a plan for what comes next. But for now, I think you should rest, recover your strength. This place is safe. No one knows about it except a couple of my closest friends, and they would never betray me. What about your ranch work? Do you not need to check on your cattle? I will ride out every few days, Cole said. But I am not leaving you here alone, not yet. Not until we know whether the trackers have given up or if they are still searching. He took a sip of his coffee. I was thinking I might ride down to a friend's place tomorrow, a man named Tom Ritter. He lives about 10 miles south of here, runs a small ranch with his wife. Tom has contacts throughout the territory, hears things. He might know whether Frost is still actively searching for you. Is that dangerous for you? Catherine asked. If anyone finds out you helped me. Let me worry about that, Cole said. But he appreciated her concern. For now, let us just focus on today. You could use some time to rest and recover. The past few days have been hard on you. Catherine could not argue with that. Her entire body ached from the long ride, and emotionally she felt drained. The constant fear of the past months, followed by the terror of being hunted, had taken its toll. They spent that day quietly. Cole showed Catherine around the property, pointing out the various features. The stream provided fresh water year-round. The small garden behind the cabin was overgrown but could be revived. The corral held 2 additional horses besides Cole's buckskin and Catherine's mare. The view from the ridge above the cabin was breathtaking, miles of desert stretching away to distant mountains. It is beautiful here, Catherine said as they stood looking out over the landscape. Harsh but beautiful. That is why I love it, Cole said. Out here, things are honest. The land does not lie to you. It tells you exactly what it is, what it demands. If you respect it, if you work with it rather than against it, it gives back. You sound like a poet, Catherine said with a slight smile. Cole laughed, a warm sound that made Catherine's smile wider. My sister says the same thing. She is always after me to write down my thoughts, says I see the world differently than most people. She sounds wonderful. She is, Cole said, his affection clear in his voice. Stubborn as a mule and twice as ornery, but wonderful. You would like her. I hope I get to meet her someday, Catherine said, then immediately felt awkward. She was assuming a future connection that might not exist. Once this crisis was over, once Nathaniel gave up searching for her, there would be no reason for her to stay in Cole's life. The thought made her unexpectedly sad. If Cole noticed her change in mood, he did not comment. They walked back to the cabin in comfortable silence, and Catherine helped him prepare a simple dinner. Working together in the small kitchen felt natural, their movements coordinating without discussion. Catherine found herself acutely aware of Cole's presence, the way his shoulder brushed hers as they moved past each other, the sound of his voice as he told her where things were kept. That evening they sat on the porch as the stars emerged one by one. The air was cool, and Catherine wrapped herself in one of Cole's blankets. They talked about small things, safe things. Cole told her about his work with cattle, the challenges of ranching in this difficult country. Catherine told him about working in her father's store, about the people of Superior, carefully avoiding mention of Nathaniel Frost. What did you want? Cole asked at one point. Before all this happened, what were your dreams? Catherine was quiet for a moment, thinking. I wanted something more than Superior, she said finally. I love my father, but I always felt like there should be more to life than running a general store in a small mining town. I wanted to see things, do things. Maybe become a teacher, help children learn, or maybe travel, see the ocean. I have never seen the ocean. Neither have I, Cole admitted, but I would like to someday. Sarah writes me about the Pacific, says she took a trip to San Francisco with our aunt, says the water goes on forever, just this endless blue. That sounds wonderful, Catherine said wistfully. Maybe you will see it someday, Cole said. When this is all over, when you are free to go wherever you want. Maybe, Catherine said, though she could not quite imagine that future. Right now, sitting here with Cole under the stars felt like the only real thing in the world. The next morning, Cole prepared to ride to Tom Ritter's ranch. He saddled his buckskin and checked his rifle, moving with the careful thoroughness Catherine was learning to recognize. "I should be back by nightfall," he said. "There is food in the cabin and the rifle over the door is loaded if you need it, but I do not expect any trouble. No one knows you are here." "Be careful," Catherine said, surprised by the intensity of her own concern. Cole smiled. "Always am." Then impulsively, he reached out and squeezed her hand. "I will be back soon." Catherine watched him ride away until he disappeared over the ridge, then returned to the cabin feeling oddly bereft. She spent the day cleaning, finding comfort in the familiar work. She swept the floors, washed the dishes, organized the supplies on the shelves. She found Cole's meager collection of books and settled on the porch with one, but found herself unable to concentrate, constantly looking up at the ridge where he had disappeared. What was happening to her? She barely knew this man. Yet in the space of just a few days, he had become central to her world. She felt safe with him in a way she had never felt with anyone, not even her father. More than that, she felt seen. Cole looked at her and seemed to understand things she had never spoken aloud. But she could not let herself become dependent on him. Catherine had run from one man who wanted to control her life. She could not simply transfer that dependence to another man, no matter how kind he was. When this was over, she would need to stand on her own, make her own way in the world. Even as she thought it, though, Catherine's heart rebelled. The idea of leaving Cole, of never seeing him again, was painful in a way she had not expected. Cole returned just as the sun was setting, his expression troubled. Catherine hurried out to meet him as he dismounted. "What did you learn?" she asked. Cole unsaddled his horse before answering, clearly gathering his thoughts. Finally, he turned to her. "Frost is still searching," he said. "Tom heard from a friend in Florence that Frost has hired more men, professional trackers. They lost your trail near where I found you, but they are expanding their search. Frost has put out word in every town within 100 miles, offering a reward for information about you." Catherine felt her blood run cold. "How much?" "Enough that people will look," Cole said grimly. "Tom says Frost is obsessed, talking about how you belong to him, how no one defies him and gets away with it. It is worse than I thought, Catherine. This man is not going to give up." "Then what do I do?" Catherine asked, trying to keep the panic out of her voice. "I cannot hide here forever. Eventually someone will find me, or you will need your life back, or—" "Hey," Cole said, stepping closer. He put his hands on her shoulders, steadying her. "We will figure this out. You are not alone in this." "But I am putting you in danger," Catherine said. "If Frost finds out you helped me, he will come after you too." "Let him try," Cole said, and there was steel in his voice. "I am not afraid of Nathaniel Frost." "You should be," Catherine said. "He has money, power, men willing to do whatever he asks." "And I have something he does not," Cole said. "I am fighting for something that matters. That makes me more dangerous than any hired gun he can buy." Catherine looked up into his face and saw the determination there, the quiet strength. Without thinking, she stepped forward and wrapped her arms around him, burying her face in his chest. For a moment, Cole stood frozen, then his arms came around her, holding her close. "I am scared," Catherine whispered. "I know," Cole said, his voice gentle. "But you are also brave. You ran when you needed to. You trusted me when you had no reason to. That takes courage, Catherine." They stood like that for a long moment, and Catherine felt something shift between them, some invisible barrier falling away. When she finally stepped back, her cheeks were flushed and her heart was racing. "Thank you," she said softly. Cole cleared his throat, looking almost as flustered as she felt. "We should get inside," he said. "I will make us something to eat and we can talk about what to do next." Over dinner, they discussed their options. Cole had already been thinking about it during his ride back. "Tom suggested you might be able to get out of the territory entirely," he said. "He has a cousin who runs a trading post near the California border. You could travel with a wagon train, start fresh somewhere Frost cannot reach you." "That could work," Catherine said, but her heart sank at the thought. Leaving the territory meant leaving Cole, perhaps never seeing him again. "Or," Cole said slowly, "there might be another option. Tom mentioned that if you had legal protection, someone with authority who could stand between you and Frost, that might be enough to make him back off. If you were married, for example, Frost could not make any claim on you." Catherine's breath caught. "Married?" "To someone of your choosing," Cole said quickly. "Not me necessarily. I am just saying legally if you had a husband, Frost would have no grounds. It is just an option." But the way Cole would not quite meet her eyes told Catherine there was more to his suggestion than pure legal strategy. The air between them suddenly felt charged, full of unspoken possibilities. "Cole," Catherine said carefully, "are you suggesting that you and I—" "I am suggesting it is an option," Cole said, finally looking at her directly. "I know we barely know each other. I know this is fast and strange and probably the last thing you want after running from one forced marriage. But if you needed protection, if it would help keep you safe, I would do it. No strings attached, just a legal arrangement to keep Frost away from you." Catherine's heart was pounding. "That is a significant sacrifice to make for someone you just met." "Is it?" Cole asked quietly. "Catherine, I am not going to pretend I understand what is happening here. I am not good with words or feelings or any of that. But I know that, from the moment I saw you running across that desert, something in me recognized something in you. I know that the thought of Frost getting his hands on you makes me want to do violence, which is not like me. And I know that having you here in my home feels right in a way nothing else has in a long time." Catherine could barely breathe. "Cole, You do not have to answer now," Cole said. "You do not have to answer at all. I am just saying if you need protection, if you need a way out, I am offering. But only if you want it. Only if it is your choice." Catherine stood abruptly and walked to the window, her mind racing. Marriage to Cole would solve her immediate problem. Frost would have no legal claim on her. She would be safe. But was it fair to Cole to trap him in a marriage of convenience? And could she trust her own feelings? Was she drawn to Cole because he had saved her? Or was it something deeper, more real? She thought about the past few days, the way Cole made her feel safe and seen and valued. The way he listened when she spoke, the way he looked at her like she mattered. The way her heart raced whenever he was near. That was not just gratitude. That was something else entirely. "What if it is not just protection I want?" Catherine said quietly, not turning around. "What if what I feel is more than that?" She heard Cole stand, heard him cross the floor. Then his hands were on her shoulders, gentle but sure, turning her to face him. "Then we can figure that out," he said. "Together. But first things first. First we keep you safe. Everything else we can take our time with." Catherine looked up into his face and saw the truth there. He meant every word. He would marry her for protection if that was all she needed, but he was hoping for more. They both were. "I need time," Catherine said, "to think, to be sure." "Take all the time you need," Cole said. "I am not going anywhere." The next few days fell into a rhythm. Cole worked around the ranch, tending to his cattle, repairing fence, chopping wood for the coming winter. Catherine helped where she could, cooking, mending, caring for the garden. They talked for hours, learning each other's histories, their thoughts, their dreams. The more time Catherine spent with Cole, the more certain she became. This was not gratitude. This was not desperation. This was something real and deep, and terrifying in its intensity. Cole, for his part, found himself falling harder with each passing day. Catherine was smart and funny, with a quiet strength that matched his own. She did not shy away from hard work. She asked thoughtful questions about ranching and listened to his answers with genuine interest. And when she smiled at him, really smiled, it felt like the sun breaking through clouds. But he was careful not to push. Catherine had been pursued by a man who would not take no for an answer. Cole would rather die than make her feel pressured or trapped. So he gave her space, let her set the pace, made sure she knew she had choices. A week after Cole's visit to Tom Ritter, they received news that changed everything. Tom himself rode up to the cabin, his expression grim. Frost's men were asking questions in Tucson, Tom said after accepting Cole's offer of coffee. Someone remembered seeing a woman matching Catherine's description riding northeast with a man on a buckskin horse. They are expanding their search in this direction. Cole's jaw tightened. How much time do we have? Maybe a few days, maybe less, Tom said. They are moving fast, checking every ranch, every homestead. Eventually they will work their way up here. Catherine felt fear clench her stomach. Then I need to run again. Head for California like you suggested. That is risky, Tom said. They are watching the roads. You would have to go cross-country, and that is dangerous territory, especially for a woman alone. She would not be alone, Cole said. I would go with her. That is a long trip, Tom said. What about your ranch, your cattle? I will hire someone to look after things, Cole said. Or sell off the herd if I have to. Catherine's safety comes first. Catherine felt tears sting her eyes. He was willing to give up everything he had built, everything he loved, to keep her safe. No, she said firmly. I will not let you sacrifice your life for me, Catherine, Cole began, but she cut him off. There is another option, she said, looking between Cole and Tom. The one we discussed. If I am married, Frost has no claim, and if Cole is with me, if we are a married couple, we have protection. Legal standing. Tom looked between them, understanding dawning. You two want to get married, if Catherine is willing, Cole said, his eyes on her face. Catherine took a deep breath. This was it. The moment of choice. She could keep running, keep hiding, always looking over her shoulder. Or she could trust this man who had risked everything for her, this man who made her feel things she had never felt before. I am willing, she said. If you are sure, Cole, if you truly want this. Cole crossed to her and took both her hands in his. I have never been more sure of anything, he said. Catherine, I know this is fast. I know we are doing this backwards, marrying first and courting later. But I promise you, I will spend the rest of my life making sure you never regret this choice. You will never be trapped with me. You will always have freedom, always have a voice, always be my equal partner. I know, Catherine said, and she did. That was the difference between Cole and Nathaniel. Nathaniel saw her as property. Cole saw her as a person. When? As soon as possible, Tom said practically. I can fetch the circuit preacher. He is in Florence right now, but I could have him here by tomorrow evening. We can do it right here at the cabin, simple and quick. Once you are legally married, you should register it in the nearest town, make it official. Tomorrow evening, Catherine repeated, her heart racing. That is so soon. Only if you are ready, Cole said. If you need more time. No, Catherine said, making her decision. Tomorrow is perfect. Let us do this before I lose my courage. Tom left to fetch the preacher, and Catherine and Cole were alone again. The cabin suddenly felt very small, very intimate. They were getting married tomorrow. Married. The word felt huge and strange and thrilling. Are you scared? Cole asked. Terrified, Catherine admitted. But not of you. Of everything else. Of Frost finding us. Of this not working. Of you realizing you made a mistake. Cole stepped closer and tilted her chin up so she had to meet his eyes. "I am not going to change my mind," he said. "Not tomorrow, not next week, not next year. I am in this for the long haul, Catherine. You are stuck with me now." Catherine laughed, a slightly hysterical sound. "That is supposed to reassure me." "Is it working?" "A little," Catherine admitted. Then, before she could lose her nerve, she stood on her toes and kissed him. For a moment, Cole was frozen with surprise. Then his arms came around her and he kissed her back, gentle at first, then deeper as Catherine pressed closer. The kiss was everything Catherine had imagined and more, warm and perfect and right. When they finally broke apart, both were breathing hard. Cole rested his forehead against hers. "I have been wanting to do that," he admitted. "Me too," Catherine said. They spent the rest of the day in a strange state between nervousness and anticipation. Cole rode out to check on his cattle and returned with wildflowers, which he shyly offered to Catherine. "I know they are not much," he said, "but I thought for tomorrow." "They are beautiful," Catherine said, genuinely touched. She arranged them in a tin cup and set them on the table, a small spot of color in the simple cabin. That night, Catherine lay awake in Cole's bed, thinking about the enormity of what they were about to do. Tomorrow, she would become Catherine Mallory. She would be Cole's wife. The thought should have terrified her, but instead, she felt a strange calm settling over her. This felt right. Cole felt right. In the barn, Cole was having similar thoughts. He had never imagined getting married like this, to a woman he had known for barely 2 weeks. But Catherine felt like someone he had known his whole life, like she fit into the spaces in his soul he had not known were empty. He would protect her from Nathaniel Frost. He would build a life with her. And maybe, if he was very lucky, she would come to love him the way he was already falling in love with her. The next day passed in a blur of preparation. Catherine used precious water to wash her hair and did her best to make herself presentable in her simple dress. Cole put on his cleanest shirt and actually shaved, emerging looking younger and somehow more vulnerable without his usual stubble. Tom arrived in the late afternoon with the circuit preacher, a kind-faced older man named Reverend Davies. He asked them a few questions, satisfying himself that this was their genuine wish, then agreed to perform the ceremony. They gathered on the porch as the sun began to set, painting the desert in shades of gold and crimson. Tom and his wife Martha, who had come along, stood as witnesses. Reverend Davies opened his Bible and began to speak. Catherine barely heard the words. She was too focused on Cole, on the way he looked at her, on the warmth of his hand holding hers. When it came time for their vows, Cole spoke clearly and firmly. "I, Cole Mallory, take you, Catherine Zimmerman, to be my lawfully wedded wife. I promise to protect you, to honor you, to stand beside you in all things, from this day forward, for as long as we both shall live." Catherine's voice shook slightly, but she met Cole's eyes and spoke from her heart. "I, Catherine Zimmerman, take you, Cole Mallory, to be my lawfully wedded husband. I promise to trust you, to stand with you, to build a life with you from this day forward, for as long as we both shall live." They had no rings, but it did not matter. When Reverend Davies pronounced them husband and wife, when Cole leaned down to kiss her with aching tenderness, Catherine felt the truth of it settle into her bones. She was his, and he was hers, and somehow, against all odds, that felt exactly right. They celebrated with a simple meal. Martha had brought a cake, and Tom produced a bottle of whiskey he had been saving for a special occasion. They toasted the newlyweds, and for a few hours, Catherine could almost forget that they were hiding from a dangerous man, that their lives were built on uncertain ground. When Tom and Martha and the Reverend left, promising to register the marriage in Florence the next day, Cole and Catherine were alone. The cabin felt different now, charged with new meaning. They were married. This was their wedding night. Cole cleared his throat awkwardly. I will still sleep in the barn, he said. Unless. I mean, we do not have to. That is, this marriage can be whatever you want it to be. Catherine felt a rush of affection for this good man who was trying so hard to do the right thing. She crossed to him and took his hand. Cole, she said gently, I married you because I wanted to, all of you. I do not want you sleeping in the barn anymore. Cole's eyes darkened. Catherine, are you sure? I do not want you to feel obligated. I am sure, Catherine said. I am your wife now, and I want to be your wife in every way. What happened next was tender and sweet and perfect. Cole was gentle, patient, making sure Catherine felt safe and cherished. And when Catherine finally fell asleep in her husband's arms, she felt a peace she had not known in years. But peace, in the Arizona Territory in 1883, was always temporary. 3 days later, they had visitors. Cole was chopping wood behind the cabin when he heard the horses. He immediately grabbed his rifle and called for Catherine, who emerged from the cabin, her face pale. They had both known this moment might come, but knowing did not make it easier. 4 riders crested the ridge and approached the cabin. Cole recognized the type immediately, hired guns with hard eyes and easy access to their weapons. But they stopped a respectful distance away, hands visible, making no aggressive moves. We are looking for a woman, the lead rider said. He was lean and weathered with a tracker's patient eyes. Name of Catherine Zimmerman, you seen her? Who is asking? Cole said evenly, his rifle held loosely but ready. We work for Mr. Nathaniel Frost, the tracker said. He is looking for his fiancée. She ran off, seems to have gotten confused. He is worried about her, wants to make sure she is safe. His fiancée, Cole repeated flatly. That is interesting, considering Catherine Zimmerman is now Catherine Mallory, my wife. We were married 3 days ago. The tracker's eyes narrowed. That's so. That is so, Cole said. We have papers to prove it, registered legal in Florence. So whatever claim Mr. Frost thought he had, it is void now. The tracker studied Cole for a long moment, then his gaze shifted to Catherine, who had stepped out onto the porch. That true, miss? You married this man of your own free will? Yes, Catherine said, her voice steady despite her racing heart. I am Catherine Mallory now. I have no ties to Nathaniel Frost and never did. He pursued me against my wishes. I ran because he would not accept my refusal. This is my husband, this is my home, and you are not welcome here. The tracker seemed to weigh this information. Mr. Frost is not going to be happy, he said finally. That is Mr. Frost's problem, Cole said. The lady has made her choice. It is legal and binding. If Mr. Frost has an issue with that, he is welcome to take it up with the law. The law in these parts tends to see things Mr. Frost's way, the tracker said. Then maybe he should take it to a judge in Phoenix, Cole said, where the law is not in his pocket. But I suspect he will not do that, because he knows he has no case. Catherine was never his fiancée, never agreed to marry him, and now she is legally married to someone else. There is nothing he can do. The tracker was silent for a long moment. Then he nodded slowly. I will relay your message, he said, but I cannot promise Mr. Frost will accept it. He does not have to accept it, Cole said. He just has to live with it. The trackers turned their horses and rode away, and Cole and Catherine stood watching until they disappeared over the ridge. Only then did Catherine's knees give out. Cole caught her and held her up, his own heart pounding. You think that is the end of it? Catherine asked. I do not know, Cole admitted, but we have the law on our side now. Frost can bluster and threaten, but he cannot force you to marry him when you are already married to someone else. He could hurt you, Catherine said. To punish me. He could try, Cole said grimly, but I am not an easy man to hurt. And Tom has already spread word to friends throughout the territory. If anything happens to us, people will know where to look. They spent the next few days in tense anticipation, waiting for retaliation that did not come. Cole kept his rifle close and doubled his vigilance, but the days passed quietly. Finally, 2 weeks after the tracker's visit, Tom rode up with news. "Frost has left the territory," Tom said. "Packed up and headed back east. Word is he was furious about your marriage, but his business partners back in New York sent word that they were unhappy with how much time and money he was spending on personal matters. They gave him a choice: focus on business or lose their support. He chose business." Catherine felt a weight lift from her shoulders that she had not realized she was carrying. "He is really gone," Tom confirmed. "Sold his interests in Superior and several other towns. I expect someone else will buy them up, but at least it will not be Frost." "You are safe now, Catherine, both of you are." After Tom left, Catherine and Cole stood together on the porch, watching the sunset paint the mountains. Safe. The word felt strange, almost foreign. For so long, Catherine had lived in fear. Now that fear was lifting, and in its place was something new: hope. "What do we do now?" Catherine asked. Cole wrapped his arm around her waist, pulling her close. "Now we live," he said simply. "We work the ranch, we build a life, we figure out how to be married for real, not just on paper." "I think we are doing pretty well so far," Catherine said, leaning into him. "Yeah." Cole looked down at her, a smile playing at the corners of his mouth. "Yeah," Catherine confirmed. Then more seriously, "Cole, I need you to know something. I married you to escape Frost, that is true. But I stayed married to you in my heart because of who you are, because you are kind and strong and good, because you make me laugh. Because when I am with you, I feel like I can breathe for the first time in years." Cole's eyes were bright with emotion. "Catherine, I married you to protect you. But I fell in love with you because you are brave and smart and beautiful, because you did not let Frost break you, because you took a chance on a rough cowboy with nothing to offer but a small ranch and a big heart. That is everything I need," Catherine whispered. They kissed as the sun set, and this kiss was different from the others. This was not about escape or protection or legal arrangements. This was about love, real and deep and true. The seasons changed, and Catherine and Cole settled into their life together. Catherine proved to be a quick learner, picking up ranching skills with determination. She learned to rope and brand, to treat sick cattle, to read the signs of coming weather. Cole was an excellent teacher, patient and encouraging, never mocking when she made mistakes. In turn, Catherine brought order and comfort to the cabin. She expanded the garden, put up preserves for the winter, sewed curtains for the windows. She made the rough cabin into a real home, filled with small touches that made Cole smile every time he walked through the door. They worked hard, but they also made time for joy. Cole taught Catherine to shoot, and she proved to be a natural marksman, much to his delight. They rode out together to check the herd, and Catherine learned to love the vast openness of the land, the way the sky seemed to go on forever. They talked for hours about everything and nothing, learning each other's minds as thoroughly as they had learned each other's bodies. And slowly, carefully, they fell deeper in love. Winter came to the Superstition Mountains, cold and clear. Snow dusted the high peaks, and the nights were frigid. But the cabin was warm, and Catherine and Cole spent the long evenings by the fire, reading or playing cards or simply sitting together in comfortable silence. It was in January, as the new year of 1884 began, that Catherine realized she was pregnant. She kept the news to herself for a few days, wanting to be certain, wanting to find the right moment. Finally, one evening after dinner, she took Cole's hand and placed it on her stomach. "There is someone I want you to meet," she said softly. Cole looked confused for a moment, then understanding dawned. His eyes went wide. "Catherine, are you?" "Yes," she said, unable to keep the smile from her face. "You are going to be a father." Cole whooped with joy and swept her into his arms, spinning her around until she laughed and begged him to put her down. Then he knelt and pressed his ear to her stomach, even though it was far too early to hear anything. "Hey there, little one," he said softly. "I am your papa. And I promise you, I am going to love you and protect you every single day of your life." Catherine ran her fingers through his hair, her heart so full she thought it might burst. This life, this man, this future they were building together, it was more than she had ever dreamed possible. The pregnancy progressed smoothly. Cole became almost comically protective, insisting Catherine rest more, trying to do all the heavy work himself. Catherine tolerated this for about a week before putting her foot down. "I am pregnant, not made of glass," she told him firmly. "I can still work, still be useful. The baby will not break." "I know," Cole said sheepishly. "I just worry." "I know you do," Catherine said more gently. "But you have to trust me to know my own limits. I will tell you if I need to rest." They wrote to Cole's sister Sarah with the news, and her response was ecstatic. She promised to visit in the spring, as soon as the weather allowed travel. Catherine also wrote to her father, a difficult letter in which she explained everything that had happened and begged his forgiveness for leaving. His response, when it came, was cautious but kind. He was hurt that she had not confided in him, but he understood why she had run. And he was glad she had found safety and happiness with Cole. Spring came, and with it new life. The desert bloomed with wildflowers, and Catherine's stomach swelled. They chose names, arguing good-naturedly over the options. If it was a boy, Catherine wanted Thomas after Tom Ritter, who had helped them. Cole agreed, on the condition that a girl could be named Sarah, after his sister. Sarah herself arrived in April, traveling with a friend for propriety's sake. She was a whirlwind of energy and affection, embracing Catherine as though they had known each other for years. "I cannot believe my brother managed to find someone as wonderful as you," Sarah said, linking arms with Catherine as they walked around the property. "I was beginning to think he would be a bachelor forever, married only to his cattle and his mountains." "He is pretty wonderful himself," Catherine said. "Oh, I know," Sarah said, "but do not tell him I said that. He will get a swelled head." She glanced at Catherine's swollen belly. "How are you feeling? Are you nervous?" "Terrified," Catherine admitted, "but also excited. Cole is going to be an amazing father." "Yes, he is," Sarah agreed. "He practically raised me after our parents died. He is the best man I know, Catherine. You chose well." "I know," Catherine said softly. Sarah stayed for 2 weeks, and by the time she left, she and Catherine were fast friends. She made Catherine promise to write with news of the baby and to visit Denver someday so they could spend more time together. Summer arrived, hot and intense. Catherine grew larger and more uncomfortable, but she remained in good spirits. Cole fussed over her constantly, making her laugh with his concern. He had Tom's wife Martha come stay with them in late July, not wanting to risk Catherine going into labor without another woman present. On a blazing hot day in early August, Catherine's labor began. It was long and difficult, lasting through the night and into the next day. Cole paced outside like a caged animal, unable to stay away but feeling useless. Tom had to physically restrain him from bursting into the bedroom several times. Finally, as the sun was setting on the second day, he heard the sound he had been waiting for, a baby's cry. Martha emerged from the bedroom, tired but smiling. "You have a son," she said. "A big, healthy boy, and Catherine did beautifully. She is tired, but she is fine." Cole rushed into the bedroom. Catherine lay in the bed, exhausted and sweat-soaked, but radiantly happy. In her arms was a tiny bundle wrapped in a blanket. Cole approached slowly, almost reverently. "Come meet your son," Catherine said softly. Cole sat on the edge of the bed and looked down at the tiny face peeking out from the blanket. The baby had stopped crying and was looking around with unfocused eyes. He had a shock of dark hair and the tiniest fingers Cole had ever seen. "Thomas," Catherine said. "Thomas Mallory." "Hey, Thomas," Cole said, his voice choked with emotion. "I am your papa, and this is your mama, the bravest, strongest, most amazing woman in the world." He leaned down and kissed Catherine's forehead, then very carefully touched the baby's soft cheek. "Thank you," he whispered to Catherine. "For this, for everything." "Thank you," Catherine said, "for saving me, for loving me, for giving me this life." They sat together as the sun set, the new family, and Catherine thought back to that day she had run across the desert, terrified and alone. If someone had told her then that within a year she would be here in the mountains, with a husband she loved and a beautiful son, she never would have believed it. But life, she had learned, was full of unexpected blessings. Thomas was an easy baby, much to everyone's relief. He ate well and slept in reasonable stretches, and he seemed content to be passed between his parents. Cole was besotted, spending hours just watching the baby sleep, marveling at every tiny movement. As Thomas grew, the ranch prospered. Cole expanded the herd, and with Catherine's help managing the accounts, they began to turn a real profit. They were not wealthy, but they were comfortable, with enough to live on and a little extra to save. When Thomas was 6 months old, Catherine's father made the journey to visit them. The meeting was emotional, with apologies and forgiveness on both sides. He stayed for a week, getting to know Cole and falling in love with his grandson. Before he left, he told Catherine that he had sold the store in Superior and was planning to move to Phoenix, where he could start fresh without the shadow of debt and Nathaniel Frost's influence. "You did the right thing, running," he told Catherine on his last evening. "I am sorry I did not protect you better. Sorry I did not see what Frost really was until it was too late." "It worked out," Catherine said, glancing over to where Cole was playing with Thomas on a blanket. "I found exactly what I needed." "I can see that," her father said with a smile. "You are happy here, Catherine, really happy. That is all I ever wanted for you." The years passed, marked by the seasons and the rhythms of ranch life. Thomas grew into a bright, energetic child who loved the outdoors and followed his father everywhere. When he was 3, Catherine gave birth to a daughter they named Sarah, after Cole's beloved sister. The original Sarah was thrilled and visited as often as she could, doting on her namesake. Life was not always easy. There were hard winters when feed ran low and they worried about losing cattle. There were dry summers when the stream ran low and they had to haul water from farther away. There were illnesses and injuries, the normal trials of frontier life. But through it all, Catherine and Cole stood together. They had built something real and lasting, a partnership based on love and respect and trust. They made decisions together, worked together, raised their children together. Catherine sometimes thought about Nathaniel Frost, wondered what had become of him. But she never regretted running, never regretted the choice she had made that desperate morning in Superior. Because running had led her to Cole, and Cole had given her everything she had ever wanted: love, freedom, a home, a future. One evening, when Thomas was 8 and Sarah was 5, and Catherine was pregnant with their 3rd child, they sat together on the porch watching the sunset. The children were playing in the yard, their laughter carrying on the warm air. Cole had his arm around Catherine and she leaned into his solid warmth. "You ever regret it?" Cole asked quietly. "The way things happened, the running, the rush into marriage." Catherine was quiet for a moment, thinking. "No," she said finally, "not for a single moment. I regret that I had to run, that Frost put me in that position. But I do not regret where running led me. I do not regret you, Cole. Never you. Good, Cole said, pressing a kiss to her temple. Because I do not regret any of it either. Best decision I ever made, chasing down a desperate woman running across the desert. Catherine laughed. That is a strange thing to be proud of. Maybe, Cole agreed. But it is my story, our story, and I would not change a single word of it. They sat in comfortable silence, watching their children play, feeling the third child move in Catherine's belly. The desert stretched away before them, harsh and beautiful and theirs. They had carved a life out of this difficult land, built something lasting and true. Catherine thought about the woman she had been, the terrified girl running from a man who would not take no for an answer. She was so far from that woman now. She was Catherine Mallory, rancher's wife, mother, survivor. She was strong and capable and free, and she was loved. The third child, when he was born that winter, they named Robert, after Catherine's father. He was followed 2 years later by another daughter, Emma. The cabin had to be expanded to accommodate their growing family, and Cole built on 2 additional rooms with Tom's help. The ranch continued to prosper. Cole developed a reputation for breeding quality horses in addition to his cattle operation, and buyers came from all over the territory. Catherine managed the business side, proving to have a sharp head for numbers and negotiation. Together, they built something significant, a legacy for their children. As the children grew, Catherine and Cole made sure to teach them the story of how they met, appropriately edited for young ears. They wanted their children to understand that sometimes the right thing meant running from what was wrong, that courage came in many forms, and that love could grow in the most unexpected places. Thomas grew up to be much like his father, steady and strong, with a deep love for the land. Sarah inherited her mother's quick mind and her aunt's vivacious personality. Robert was quiet and thoughtful, with an artist's eye for beauty. Emma, the baby, was fearless and adventurous, constantly giving her parents heart attacks with her climbing and exploring. They were a loud, chaotic, loving family, and Catherine treasured every moment. Years passed. The Arizona Territory grew and changed. In 1912, it became a state, and Catherine and Cole celebrated with their now adult children. They were grandparents several times over by then, their house often full of visiting family and the laughter of grandchildren. Catherine's hair had gone silver, and Cole's face was deeply lined by years of sun and wind. But they still sat together on the porch in the evenings, still held hands, still looked at each other with love that had only deepened over the decades. "We did good," Cole said one evening, watching their grandchildren play in the yard where their own children had once played. "We did," Catherine agreed. "We built something beautiful here, Cole, something lasting." "I love you," Cole said, as he had said countless times over the years, but the words never grew old, never lost their power. "I love you too," Catherine said. "Thank you for hiding my trail all those years ago, for giving me a chance at a different life." "Thank you for trusting me," Cole said, "for taking a chance on a rough cowboy with a small ranch and a big heart." They sat together as the sun set over the mountains they loved, the same mountains that had sheltered them when they were young and desperate and just beginning to fall in love. So much had changed since that day. Catherine ran and Cole hid her trail. But some things remained constant: their love, their partnership, their family. And as the stars began to appear one by one in the darkening sky, Catherine thought that if she could go back and do it all again, she would not change a single thing. Every hardship, every moment of fear, every difficult choice had led her here, to this porch, to this man, to this beautiful life they had built together. It had all been worth it, every single moment. And as Cole squeezed her hand and smiled at her in the gathering darkness, Catherine knew that their love story, which had begun with fear and flight and a cowboy brave enough to help a desperate woman, would continue until their last breaths. They had found each other against all odds, and they would hold on to each other until the very end. That was the promise they had made on a porch in the Superstition Mountains, spoken over simple vows with wildflowers as decoration. And it was a promise they kept every day for the rest of their long and happy lives together. The end came peacefully for both of them, decades after that first desperate meeting in the desert. Cole passed first, at the age of 83, with Catherine holding his hand. She followed him 6 months later, unable to bear the world without her partner, her love, her rescuer who had become so much more. They were buried together on the ridge above their cabin, overlooking the land they had loved and worked and shared. Their children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren gathered to celebrate their lives, to tell the story of how Catherine ran and Cole hid her trail, and how that single act of kindness had blossomed into a love that lasted a lifetime. And in the years that followed, when their descendants gathered at the old ranch, now passed down through the generations, they would walk up to that ridge and stand before 2 simple headstones. They would tell the story again, the tale of the woman who ran from a man who would not take no for an answer, and the cowboy who hid her trail and gave her a new life. It became a family legend, a love story for the ages, a reminder that sometimes the best things in life come from the worst circumstances, and that true love is worth any risk, any sacrifice, any leap of faith. Catherine Zimmerman Mallory and Cole Mallory had taken that leap together, and they had built something extraordinary from it. A family, a legacy, a love story that would be told for generations, and in the end, that was all that mattered. Not the fear that drove them together, not the danger they faced, not the hardships they endured, just the love, always the love.